listening to the Flickcast, a pop culture podcast about stuff nerds love. I am Chris Ulrich, and joining me, of course, Joe Dilworth. Hello, Joe. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. How are you?
I don't know. I'm doing okay. How you doing today? I don't know what's going on with that.
Well, I totally
effect.
did the radio. I'm doing great.
I'm doing great. How
Now
are you?
let's get to the hits. No,
That's right. Number one with a bullet. Okay, I shouldn't say that.
yes, exactly.
That's no one says that anymore because that's probably not cool. Yes, we are doing a podcast though, so it's kind of like the radio, but not exactly.
Sure.
And if you're looking for that podcast, you can find it on Stitcher and Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts and wherever you find podcasts. And if I say the word podcast enough, I think I get a wish.
True. And hey, if you want to support us, throw a few bucks our way to help maintain and update equipment and things like that, because we don't ever get enough to put in our pockets, and that's okay, because that's not why we're doing this. But you can go to Patreon, and that's patreon.com/TheFlickcast, and support us and get some additional content. So
more content, because these episodes are running short. So I know you're clamoring for more content.
I know.
Yeah, we do tend we tend to go on a bit. So sorry about that, everybody.
A little bit, yeah. I would say. I know after 2 hours of listening to us, you're like, I need some more this week. And
why don't these guys shut the fuck up? That's what.
But if you were a patron, you could go and get that extra content. So I'm just saying.
You could listen for hours and hours and hours
Absolutely.
and never ever hear the same thing twice. Never hear the same thing twice. Wait,
that's probably true. I think that's very true.
I think you're right. It's true. It's like it became a David Mamet show. It's true. The thing about the thing is this.
Yes.
Sorry, we don't have to get into David Mamet, but
we should do an episode that is done as if
no,
David Mamet
God, no.
wrote it.
We should not do that. That would be a terrible idea.
Because we could say fuck like every other word, and then
we can say fuck anyway. This is America.
We could reiterate what we said back and forth to each other like 85 times. It'd be great.
Yeah, it's a challenge to see if they do that more than any character in an Aaron Sorkin show uses the word okay, because he says okay all the time. Everyone says okay, especially I don't know why. Whenever I do it like Bradley Whitford did it in The West Wing. Okay, because that's kind of that was his shtick.
Yes.
If you've never seen The West Wing, you're missing out. It's a pretty good show.
You should, or really, if you haven't seen a David Mamet movie, you should. Although, just understand, in any Mamet movie, there's really only one or two conversations that happen. They just happen expansively and over again. So,
what would you say? House of Cards,
or
Mamet? House of Games? What is it? Oh no, it's House of Games. No, shoot. What's the one with Joe Mantegna? Oh boy, it's House of Games, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Now I gotta look it up. Oh no.
Are we talking best Mamet movies?
I'm just talking about like if you want to get into Mamet movies.
Glengarry, Glen Ross. I mean, come on.
Yeah, but did he direct that? I don't remember. I thought he just wrote it.
Well, yeah, but still, I mean, that's a David Mamet movie. Come on.
It is. Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, he wrote it's based on his play, of course, but it's just no. Hold on a second.
Sure, you wrote the screenplay.
House of Games. I was right. Okay, good. Yes, House of Games is a movie you should watch. He wrote it and directed it, and it stars Lindsay Krause and Joe Mantegna, and it's excellent. It's one of my favorite subjects of movies too. It's about con men and hustlers, and of course Ricky Jay figures prominently in it.
Well, yes, the great Ricky Jay.
The great Ricky Jay, R.I.P. But I would definitely watch House of Games. In fact, I'm gonna watch. Oh, and J.T. Walsh is in it too. Fuck, like everybody. J.T. Walsh was amazing. And Macy, of course. Macy shows up in everything. Although I think Macy's canceled now, right? So I don't know.
Yeah, so James Foley directed Glengarry, Glen Ross, but Mamet wrote the screenplay based on his play. So
right, and added that very important scene for Alec Baldwin.
Yeah, that's just... I could watch just that scene from that movie.
I'm here from downtown. I'm here from Mitch and Murray. I love that scene.
Yes.
Yeah, he's good in that. He's really good in that. Coffee is for closers, bitch.
Put the coffee down.
Put that coffee down, yeah.
First prize is a new car. Second prize is a set of steak knives. Third prize is you're fired.
You're fired,
yeah.
It's a good scene.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's a good scene, but I don't know why. I don't know the story of why he wrote that scene and why Alec Baldwin I think Alec Baldwin was blowing up at the time and like, we should get Alec Baldwin in this. And maybe he couldn't do the entire show or the entire movie, but he ended up just doing that scene. But
I think it was something like he auditioned or they wanted him for like one of the major roles and he couldn't do it. And Mamet, he's like, I only have a little bit of time. And Mamet's like, oh, well, I will write a part for you.
I bet you could look it up and find it on the internet and probably know everything.
It's possible. I bet you could. Which story though would be true? Because it's not. It's just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's true. So.
That's absolutely true. So we should get back to, we talked about Why the Last Man last week.
Yes.
And you wanted to revisit that. I mean, it's coming pretty soon, and we'll definitely not revisit it. We'll definitely get into it more when the show premieres.
Yes.
I'm still looking forward to it. I don't know if it's partially because it's just taken so long to get here, but also because I love the show or I love the comics so much. I think it's both. But you wanted to revisit it. So what further information did you want to share?
Well, I just wanted to bring up that in obviously doing interviews and publicity for the show, and honestly, this was kind of a question I had back in the day reading the comic. I mean, the premise of it is that every living mammal with a Y chromosome dies suddenly at some for whatever reason with the event. I don't want to spoil it, but it brought up at the time. I mean, it was pretty binary at the time, right? It was like, well, that means that all the men in the world are dead and all the women live. And as we know, genders and science and chromosomes aren't that cut and dry and that binary. And I think it's good that the producers have said that, hey, we kind of have modified or expanded the story to, address that there's, people that don't know they have Y chromosomes that die. There's, the issue of transgender and things like that. So they bring that up. And I don't think it's going to be, because I know a bunch of people are like, oh God, this is going to be another woke show. And I don't think it's like every scene they make an impression of it, but I think it's important, at least when depicting the tragedy that happens in the show, that is kind of part of the narrative. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure the articles talking about it and even us talking about it here are probably going to go on for more time than is actually covered in the show. I appreciate that kind of detail in a show and or movie, and I think especially nowadays it's an important distinction to make. So I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, they make an interesting point that the gender is not necessarily determined by chromosomes. They say that in the article that we're talking about, they talk about how some women have Y chromosomes and some transgender people have Y. So it's like, it doesn't necessarily mean it's just all the dudes, the cisgender dudes who die. So yeah, I mean, I think that you would definitely want to explore that. I don't think there's anything wrong with what Brian K. Vaughan and Pete Guerrero did back in the day.
No, not
but
at
it's
all.
just like they didn't. It's like all the dudes died. They were just trying to make a broader statement. I'm sure it's not. It's no indictment of the source material. I'm sure. It's just now they want to expand it, and it makes sense. I mean, even if you're just talking from a straight scientific standpoint, it makes sense. So I'm glad they're exploring all that. But yeah, people are going to say, oh, the show is woke, or the show is this, or the show is that, or whatever. But so what?
And to be fair to the comic and to Brian K. Vaughan, it wasn't. They over and over again said every mammal with a Y chromosome. They didn't explicitly say, oh, all the dudes died and only the women are alive. That were the characters that they depicted and showed, but they didn't exclude any gender or force an agenda. And so I thought that was cool. And so even at the time reading the comic, I was like, oh, okay, so they don't explicitly say this, so that makes sense to me. But
that's right. Yeah, that's right. It doesn't go against anything, or but there's always going to be someone or more than one someone who's going to come out of the woodwork and say, you're not being true to the source material. It's not my Why the Last Man.
Absolutely.
Or why are you so woke? Or why is this happening? Why can't I get a girlfriend? Whatever.
Why do I live in my parents' basement?
What? Hey, you know what? There's nothing wrong with living in a basement. I don't know why we stereotype that. If that's all you can afford, people can't afford fancy houses, Joe.
I'm honestly okay if my kids never leave the house, to be honest.
Yeah. Do you have a basement? That's pretty cool. I don't have a basement.
Actually, but
I don't want my kids to stay my kid to stay in the house forever, because
I'm not going to make him live in the basement. He can have
the whole upstairs smells like boy, and I'm a boy. It doesn't bother me as much, but it's not pleasant. Anyway, that's a total non sequitur. But I think that it makes sense to explore all of the elements of storytelling, and I don't think there's anything wrong with this at all. And it's just it's just unfortunate that there's going to be probably pushback from some people, but who cares?
Yeah, I don't think those people are going to really like the story anyway. So the hell.
Well,
with
they might not. They might not because there's a lot of empowered women in the show, and it'll probably make them scared. You know, it's like, oh god, the women are in charge.
I know. It's like, oh no, what are we gonna do?
You know, it's like the male fantasy of all the women and just me. You know, I'm the last man, so I'm gonna get a lot of girls. I'm gonna get a lot of action, but
well,
it doesn't work out.
That wasn't the point at all. But yeah,
that wasn't the point at all. But that's what some people are going to think. I'm sure. But I don't know. I don't remember if Yorick even he does. I guess he finds a girl at one point, but I don't really remember the story that well.
He hooks up here and there, and
yeah.
What I'm curious about, all that aside, is there is a I won't ruin it, but I'm curious. I think we discussed this last week. I'm curious to see how much they adhere to the ending. Let's say that. To the ending of the comic, or if
they're not gonna end the show. I mean, they're gonna keep going, right? So
no, but I mean, at some point, hopefully, it's going to be very successful and go for multiple seasons. But I mean, there's very clear storylines, much like The Walking Dead. There's very clear storylines in the comic, so I'm curious to see how much they adhere to those, and how much at some point when the show does end, which I hope is many seasons from now, because there's a ton of story there to tell. I wonder. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it. I'm just curious to see how they adhere to the ending of the comic. So,
well, I mean, I don't know how involved Brian K. Vaughan is going to be in the series, but at least in the case of Walking Dead, Kirkman was on the show all the time, right? So
true.
He was a producer on the show and a writer on the show. So I don't know that Brian K. Vaughan will be that involved in the show, or maybe he will. But hopefully it'll go. As we talked about before, most TV shows, I have a 5-year plan or whatever. So it's like, I've got 5 seasons in my brain about how we could do this. But I would imagine that you could lead to that conclusion. And that's again, we don't want to spoil the ending, obviously, but you could do that over 5 years. I mean, 10, 12 episodes. And now, especially with sort of, I want to say truncated seasons, but kind of the normal number of episodes, now 10 or 12 episodes a season instead of 22 or 24. You could stretch it over 5 years for sure. And I mean, you could have an entire episode of a guy trying to flee a hospital, like in Walking Dead, but it's
exactly.
or you can be stuck on a farm for 6 weeks. Where's Carl? It's like, fuck Carl, man. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly.
Fuck that kid. And you know what? The whole fucking thing about Carl, and then he ends up dying anyway. So fuck him. That's all I can say.
Yeah, exactly.
And he doesn't even have the courtesy to survive the whole show. So
right.
I'm sorry, that's a terrible thing to say, but darn you, Negan. Spoilers for Walking Dead, folks. Sorry if you've never seen. Fucking Carl gets killed. So there you go. Sorry. You have to watch the show now. Spoiler: Carl dies. Fucking Rick dies. Everybody dies.
Everybody hates us. Well, I mean, they're all The Walking Dead, right? So they're already dead.
Well, they're already dead. They just don't know it yet. Well, that's what they say in almost the first season. Well, when they go to the CDC, right? It's like, you've all got the virus already. So
that's right.
You're all fucked.
At the very least, I hope that Why the Last Man catches on and goes, at least is able to tell a complete story, whatever they decide that's going to be. And I'm not one of those that are like, oh, they have to adhere to each storyline in the graphic novel. I don't think so. I think that this show could go anywhere and do anything they wanted to.
Well, they're already changing it up with featuring Diane Lane so prominently. I mean,
it shouldn't show up till like much later in the
they were like, it's interesting. Yeah, well, we won't spoil who she is, but so they're definitely going to mix it up, obviously, and it seems like almost like she's leading. Like, you got to go out and find people and do this, and we got to bring back society. And what's this person? There's a dude or whatever still alive. What happened here?
With his dude monkey.
And he's got a monkey. That's weird. Why would you have a monkey?
Yeah, anyway.
So why would you, if I'm trying to survive, you just need friends? Is that what it is? If I'm trying to survive in a post-apocalyptic landscape, am I taking a monkey with me? I don't know. A monkey seems like a liability maybe, but unless the monkey's like really smart.
Pretty sure there's a reason in the story why he has the monkey still.
What? Reason in the story? No.
Yeah, there's never really any. I'm sure it's.
I'm just talking about like if I were in a. I don't have a monkey first of all, but if I don't know that I would just pick one up and just walk with him. But anyway, whatever.
Well, especially if you came across, I would think any mammal that, like, hey, there's another male mammal. I should probably hold on to him because.
That's right, because ampersand is a boy, right?
Yeah,
quote unquote,
absolutely.
So absolutely, yeah. I've seen his penis. I know he's a boy.
Well, he's a monkey. I'm sure he's shown it quite prominently. So.
Yeah, no kidding, and thrown poo at people too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm still trying to figure out if Ampersand's going to be CG or not, but I'm sure he will.
I'm pretty sure he's going to be CG. But
I mean, is that Marcel Monkey from Friends still alive? Because he's probably free, right?
I wonder if his agent reached out when he heard about this, like, hey, you know,
I heard you're doing a show with a monkey. I have a monkey right here.
Marcel did multiple seasons of Friends, which was really popular. You may have heard of it.
Yeah,
and
you may have heard of Friends. He was the star of Friends.
Yeah, he really was. I mean,
that's how you actually. Or what if that monkey was in Raiders of the Lost Ark? He's probably dead now.
Friend star Marcel. Yeah, it's like I like how they do that. It's like even if you had like if you showed up like in 3 episodes in a season, it's like friend star blah blah blah. It's like who?
Sometimes they say, I remember this on headshots and stuff. It's like co-star. It's like you were in 2 episodes, dude. Come on,
right? You didn't co-star.
You're not a freaking co-star.
You're a guest star at best. And
at best,
nobody remembers you.
Were you before the credit? Were you in the opening credits, or were you at the end? Because that's a different story too. Right. If you were at the end, then you're just a guest star. No, that's a terrible thing to say.
Well, no, they do guest stars after the opening credits too. But it's like, yeah, if you were only credited in the really quick credits at the very end, then.
Right, no, that's what I'm saying. Were you at the beginning as a guest star or at the end? Because a lot of times they'll pop you at the end.
Also featuring.
And blah, blah, blah as the president. Yes. And Diane Lane as the president. They're going to do that, of course. And Diane Lane.
Oh, she'll get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she's Diane Lane, so. You know.
Well, I don't know if you watch like Loki is a good example of that. They had with blah 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 and blah 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 and blah blah blah. You know.
I have a question about that. We're totally going off on a tangent, but it's okay. So
it's all about credits. It's very important.
Well, yeah, I always heard in the credits that getting, for example, on Stargate when Michael Shanks came back to the show. He wasn't listed just as his name with everybody else. He was at the end, and Michael Shanks as Daniel Jackson. I always heard that and with your character listed with your name is like the coveted credit to get.
I think it depends. I mean, it's just one of those things where my client wants, a call out credit, basically saying, how cool I am. And so a lot of times you'll see that in TV. Like I was just talking about Loki. It's like, and Owen Wilson and, whatever.
Because it kind of separates you from everybody else.
Yeah. I mean, you're at the end of the credits line, but you're called out because, it's like, and Samuel Jackson is Nick Fury, right? They do that sometimes. And so, because so that's why it's a call out credit. That's just another negotiated thing. But yeah, with that guy, I'm sure it's like he'll come back, but he wants X amount of dollars. He wants this M&Ms in his trailer.
So is that really like a more distinctive credit though? I mean, does it get you?
It is. Well, I in people's minds, sure, it separates you. This all started, I mean, back in the day, I suppose, with I don't know. I think about the movie Towering Inferno with Paul Newman and oh boy. Robert Redford. No, not Robert Redford. Paul Newman and Steve McQueen. Thank you. So they each had the exact same number of lines in the movie. And if you remember their credits, one guy was on the left but lower, and the other guy was on the right but higher.
Right.
So that's all started back then because they felt like they were equal. I mean, they probably started before that, but that's like the first example I remember when I was watching as a kid. Like, why are their names on there? But they're like skewed. That guy's name should anyway.
It's like my OCD can't handle that. They need.
Yeah, they're not the same. What is going on? Yeah. So it's just a way of making it distinctive and making it special.
Stand out.
Which is why, it's a call out. It's like, look, this person is a big deal, but we're saving their name till the end because otherwise they're just in the thing. Either they go right at the front. Or they go right at the end. Right. Because Tom Hiddleston is the star of Loki, right? So Tom Hiddleston is first.
And everybody in the middle, you're going to be paying attention to the story and not really their name. So yeah.
Right. Well, there. I mean, it's all. I mean, yeah. So you're going to have So you have Tom Hiddleston, and then you have and Owen Wilson. So that's or with or is it? I can't remember if it's and or with.
Yeah, I can't remember either. But
anyway,
I just find it crazy that's like negotiated. And there's probably like weeks where it's like, nope, that doesn't look right. Redo it. And it's like, what? That's crazy. But,
well, sometimes it's negotiated and it rotates too. Some I'm not in Loki, for example, but in some other shows, like one week it's going to be this person at the end, and the other week it's going to be this person at the end. So it just depends. But it's also like we can do that to make it more distinctive, or we can give you a producing credit on the show, or we can do this. Or it's like it's all about. Well, I mean, in terms of a producing credit, it's like I want more say in the creative direction of the show. So I want like Hiddleston is an executive producer of Loki, so I'm sure that was a carrot they said we're going to do this show. It's like, well, I'd like to be an executive. I mean, he probably didn't even think about it, but
Well, and I bet there's like a fair number of them when they're maybe like even with Loki, where they're like, "So Tom, we want to do the show in Loki, and we want you involved," and they start talking creative and stuff, and they're like, "Yeah, we got to give him an executive producer credit because, you know."
Well, I feel like they never. I don't know if they intended to do a Loki show from the beginning. It probably wasn't in his contract, so it's like he was done basically. And so they're like, now we want to do this show and whatever. So I'm sure
he said, I want some say so. And
well, I'd like to be involved, and maybe they offered it to him without even him having to ask for it. It's like, I want to be involved creatively in the show. We want to make you a full partner in the show, kind of thing.
Right.
And whatever, whether he actually had input or whether it was meaningful. That's another thing that I love in contrast. Meaningful consultation is a fun thing. It's just, so whether you want that or not is a different story. Whether we'll listen to your notes, I don't know. But you certainly could be in the production meetings and listen and give notes. We will never hear you at all. But
you have to take seriously and act on at least 2 notes per episode.
There you go. So, yeah. It's contractually obligated to take 3 notes and act on them. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So
you joke about that, but
no, I know that it's real. That's the thing. Yeah. It's like. Anyway, it seems silly, but it's like I get it.
It is silly. It is silly, and I'm sorry I brought up Ann Diane Lane as the president, but now because I feel that was my fault that we
spoiled it.
We got it, but she's the biggest name.
President of what? We don't know.
So. Well, the United States. Well, it's just that joke, and the joke was always and Henry Fonda as the president because Henry Fonda played the president a couple of times. Now it's and Morgan Freeman as the president, right? Because he'd be a great president. I want Morgan Freeman to narrate my life. I think he
should be president in like every movie because he's great.
He should be good. Or, Martin Sheen was a good president, too, in West Wing.
I'd like to see him be presidential more.
Let Bartlett be Bartlett. That's what I say.
Yes, absolutely.
So, Y the Last Man? Yeah. I like the fact that they're going to, whatever you want to call it, push boundaries or whatever, shake things up. What I don't like, though, I don't know if it's not even to say I don't like. It's just what I find interesting, I guess, is the quote is we're gonna do something like we're gonna blow up the whatever. Oh, I should have kept the quote. Hold on a second. Darn it, I messed up. I shouldn't have deleted that tab in my browser. That was a mistake. What is that from? You still there? Did I lose you?
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay. I thought I lost you for a second.
I was looking for the quote myself. Yeah. Well, this is IGN, so take that as you will. Why the Last Man showrunner talks about how it will blow up the binary in tackling transgender issues.
That's what I'm saying. That to me is a soundbite, talking point kind of thing, which
clickbait.
Clickbait. Whether you have an agenda or not is fine, and if your agenda is to blow up the binary or whatever you want to call it, that's fine. But make a really good show too. That's the only thing that worries me.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. So, I guess it's reported by Deadline is where they originally said it. So again, Deadline likes to sensationalize stuff. Shocking.
Right, but I mean that's a direct quote. It's kind of hard to, I'm sure that was said. It's just that shouldn't be your only. I guess that's my point. Is I don't think that should be your only mandate.
No,
I want to blow up. I want to turn drama on its head. I'm sure it isn't either. But I mean, I'm not even. I don't know. I can't tell from the context of the article whether that was the intention of the article to talk about this particular thing or whether it was just we're talking about the show or whatever. But whatever. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Just make a good show and get your point across.
I'm excited in the show by it so far. So
yeah, I think it's gonna be cool. I mean, we don't have to wait that long either, so that's kind of neat.
Yeah, so like 2-3 weeks.
Speaking of shows that I'm excited about and enjoyed, we should go to What If.
We should ask, what if?
What if? Yeah, Marvel's new animated show, sort of, I don't want to say a placeholder between other shows, but it's not.
Wow.
I'm just kidding.
People don't take animation seriously, do they?
They don't, and they should. I mean, we could talk more about animation, about other shows that are animated that I've always loved, too. Yeah. But this, I mean, you could say that this is canon in the sense that this is alternative versions of Marvel history. But listen, I'm happy to see Peggy Carter come back. I'm happy to see, people are making fun of Sebastian Stan's acting in this thing, which I find kind of amusing, but because he's very wooden. Fine. But that's kind of how Bucky was.
Yeah.
In the first Cap movie, he's like, be what do you want to do? He's like sort of like stoic like that almost, or staccato. I don't know what the word is. Anyway, he's kind of acting like. But the funny thing is too is this is more I think geared towards kids a little bit. so he's a little bit more earnest, maybe. But
maybe.
yeah,
I don't know. Going blowing up and killing Nazis is.
Well, everybody. That's cool. That's always cool.
I suppose, but it was like, woo.
Your grandpa killed Nazis. Why can't? Well, anyway.
It's true. Why can't you?
Why can't you? I'm thrilled that most of the cast came back. Haley Atwell. I think they should do more. Although apparently there's gonna in season 2. If there's a season 2, there'll be more Captain Carter. She's gonna recur. So I'm thrilled that happened. But it's one thing I found funny is they still, even though it was Peggy's episode more about Captain Carter and everything, they still kind of made it about Steve still.
Yeah, they did.
Did you notice that?
Yeah, they did.
Like, we're empowering Peggy and whatever, but what has happened to Steve? Is he okay? In the first okay, this is spoilers if you haven't seen What If, but then Howard makes the first Iron Man suit, which I thought was pretty cool, actually.
That was kind of cool.
But so what do you think of the show, man? You go.
I liked it. At the end of the episode, I was like, I would totally watch an animated series or even a live action series of Captain Carter.
Yeah, definitely.
I thought it was a great setup. I've been a huge fan of the What If comics, and I ever since they started, actually, with the first issue, What If Spider-Man joined the Fantastic Four? I was like, man, that's just awesome. I liked the concept of it. I've always liked alternate and multiverse stories of even going back to before What If. I loved the JSA, Justice Society, back in DC Comics, because they had Earth 2 Superman, who was an older Superman, and for a while Earth 2 Batman, who got killed and all this stuff. I'm like, man, you can do any story with these characters and not affect like the main characters. This is great. And What If was like that. I thought it was a great episode, and I definitely think it adhered to the tradition of the comics very well. It left me wanting more.
Definitely.
Voice acting, I guess. I don't think every actor is also a great voice actor. If that's
and that's actually a point I was going to make, is that it's harder, I think, in some ways to do voice acting than it is to do quote unquote regular acting. But you're absolutely right. Just because you're a good actor or a halfway good actor doesn't mean voice acting is easy for you. I mean, maybe Sebastian Stan is just not a great voice actor. Maybe he needs to be interacting with other people. I mean, if you're sitting in a booth doing your lines alone with some dude cueing you, it may be more difficult. So he probably, who knows? With COVID, he probably did them at home in his basement, right? I don't know.
Well, yeah. So one of the things I find interesting about this, speaking of the voice acting, and I think this goes back to our discussion about negotiating contracts and stuff. There's a lot of people that reprise their original roles from the Marvel movies, yet there are notable ones where they don't, such as Steve Rogers is voiced by a completely different person than Chris Evans. And but you know what? Here's the thing. By the
way, the guy who does Steve Rogers does a really good job.
That was what I was going to say. Having been a fan of the Big Finish Doctor Who audio productions for years, they use a lot of the actors from the original show. Some they can't because they're not here anymore, and some they just can't get. And they have had people that do passable versions of them. And I thought the guy who did Steve Rogers in this was really good.
Josh Keaton
really.
is. No, Josh Keaton is the guy who did Steve Rogers, and Josh has a huge resume of voiceover and anime work. So he's a professional voice actor and was able to study, I'm sure, Chris Evans. But yeah, I thought he was pretty. I almost thought it was Chris Evans at some point, and he was pretty spot on. So
yeah, and I know Dave Bautista made a point. Well, they never asked me to voice Drax in this, so, and he didn't sound like he was disappointed. He's like, yeah, they just never asked me. But, one of the producers kind of countered with that and said, well, I find that surprising because as far as I know, we reached out to everyone, whether it was directly or through their agents. So it's like I was saying, animation isn't taken too seriously. So I wonder if, there's a case of Bautista's agent was like, yeah, no, he's not going to do
well, he might have been too busy or I mean, I'm not trying to defend Dave Bautista's agent or whatever, but I believe him when he says that he didn't hear anything about it or he doesn't know, he wasn't reached out, because I'm sure the agent passed probably on it without even, it's like, nah, he's not going to do that. He's too busy.
Right.
He's too busy doing Army of the Dead, or they're trying to position him as something. He's too busy doing Dune. He's too busy doing other shit.
Yeah.
So, but we talked about this before. I would imagine that a lot of the people who reprised their roles in this were either still under contract with Marvel. Like a big person in this is Samuel Jackson, who was totally in it as Nick Fury at the end. Spoiler if you haven't seen What If, by the way. and Jeremy Renner, who are both under contract to Marvel because Renner has a show, the Hawkeye show coming out, and Samuel Jackson is basically works for Marvel for the rest of his life now. But I was surprised that like Stanley Tucci came back and Toby Jones. I mean, they're
Neil
they probably
Madonna,
enjoy.
I mean, you know.
Yeah, I thought it was Dum Dugan. I don't know. Your character's name is Dum Dum, but you
and even Bradley Whitford. I mean, it was like, wow.
Well, it's amazing. Yeah, Paul Bettany, Josh Brolin, Don Cheadle.
There's a lot of people coming back. So yeah,
Benicio del Toro, Michael Douglas. I mean, huge names. Chris Hemsworth. Yeah. I mean, all these guys are just like big time actors who just came back. Natalie Portman. I mean, she's under contract with Marvel too. So yeah, I'm sure it's like we're doing this show, and you're on set making Thor: Love and Thunder, but here's a booth we set up in this trailer, so you can record these lines really quick. And Ruffalo is coming back for She-Hulk apparently. So yeah, so I'm sure that's what happened. But Chris Evans is like, nah, I'm good.
I'm sure there's like a number of them, obviously, because they've been replaced. Just the fact that.
And Robert Downey Jr. is probably like, nah, I'm good.
I mean, the fact of all the people they did get leads me to believe that they didn't intentionally leave anyone out. It was just like, hey, we're doing this thing. Do you want to be involved? And they were, like you said, maybe either their agent said, yeah, we can't fit it in, and they just never heard about it, or the actor themselves are like, yeah, I'm kind of done with that role. I think I'll pass. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's totally fine.
Yeah, I'm just gonna make the prediction or make the guess that it's people who are still either contracted with Marvel still, or they still had stuff left on their contract. They're owed like one more movie. They're owed one more whatever. Because most of these characters, most of these actors are in other Marvel shows or in other Marvel projects still. I mean, most of the big ones.
Yeah,
still.
But people like Stanley Tucci and Toby Jones are not. I mean.
Well, maybe not. But I mean, Stanley Tucci is not. I mean, no offense to Stanley Tucci, I love him. I think he's awesome, but he's not. Robert Downey Jr. He's not that expensive. You know what I mean? It's like you get him for a reasonable price, and you kind of needed him. I think his voice is very distinctive. You kind of needed him for this, and I imagine that Erskine will come back, maybe or not. But you kind of needed him for that. I think that was one thing that was great about the show is they basically paralleled the movie First Avenger almost exactly. He's like, I'll get into except Peggy's one decision, which I think is brilliant. Really, it's like look how things change with one choice, right?
Yes.
But let's. By the way, let's not forget to single out Jeffrey Wright being the Watcher.
Oh yeah, of course, that was a brilliant choice. I think,
or being the Rod Serling of the show, basically, right?
Yeah. He has a great voice. So
yeah, he's awesome. Yeah, I love him. And I'm happy to see that he'll be coming back in the next Bond film when that's released in 15 years.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's awesome.
When that's in 2050, when that gets released.
I just watched Casino Royale again recently. He's really good in that.
He's awesome as Felix Leiter.
I mean, he's just good in everything. Yeah, I've always been a fan. So,
but yeah, no, I like the first episode. I would like to see more of those characters. I did like how they had an alternate way for her to, be frozen in ice for 70 years. That's not what it was, but it was like, nice. When they first fired up the Tesseract at, the Avenger the Shield compound, she comes out. It's like, that's pretty cool. So
it was cool, but the tentacle monster, which was interesting too.
Cthulhu.
I mean,
no.
It could have been, but I mean, apparently, I've seen some speculation that it's like part of like the Elder Gods or some kind of creature. I can't remember the name of the creature, and I love the fact that it kind of relates to Cthulhu. Which, did you know that all that stuff is in public domain, by the way?
I did, yes.
So you and I can make a Cthulhu show if we wanted to.
Right, and that's why those things are kind of used in a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's cool that she was fighting that monster, and then that's a great way to do the same kind of thing that happens to Steve, and it's clever. That was clever, I thought, and to have her show up at the at the place that that later someone else shows up was pretty interesting. So I think that that hopefully they will use that character again, and then it'll be in modern times because that timeline is different now, right? So if you think about time travel, or if you think about like timelines and stuff, the way that Marvel uses them, every time something like that happens, it creates a new branch timeline, right?
Right.
So this world exists now. Whether the TVA is going to come and
erase it, yes,
and erase it, I don't know. But
they're a little busy right now, though.
Well, people were speculating that was Peggy in the background in that first episode of Loki, right? So
exactly.
So who knows if she was erased or whatever it was called? I forgot the term already.
Or sent to the cornfield, because
sent to the cornfield.
Apparently, they weren't deleted completely. They went off to
right.
Yeah,
they went off to the cornfield.
So
but
here's my question. I wonder if
yes,
it's the whole tentacle interdimensional monster thing seems a little too throwaway to not. So here's my question. I wonder if that's going to be like the Thanos of this, like a recurring thing, and it culminates with like the multiverse Avengers, where it's like Captain Carter and maybe the Black Panther Star-Lord and a couple other characters from some of the episodes end up having to team up to fight this huge multiversal thing. Well, am I thinking too much about it? Maybe I don't know.
No, that's interesting you say that, because I feel like they're not just going to do one-off episodes of each kind of thing. What if Peggy Carter was the first Avenger? What if T'Challa was the first Batman? I don't know. I don't even know what I'm talking about. But it's like that's DC, of course. Yeah. But so I think you're right. And there might be some sort of thing, because basically every Marvel character shows up in this show according to the credits.
Yeah.
So there could be a big sort of Nexus event kind of thing, and if you believe this is canon, then it has to tie in some way with the multiverse of madness, right? Because Doctor Strange does appear in this. Benedict Cumberbatch is in the show,
and so does Loki.
So does Loki, yeah. So it's like they all kind of fit in. I'm really happy to find out that Korg is going to be in the show, because Korg should have his own show, by the way. But
there just should be, they should do a comedy series with Korg and Meek, and I think that would be fantastic. Yeah.
Man, that's back again. He called me a dickhead. I'm sorry. I love Korg.
Meek. He's dead.
He's my friend Meek.
Wait, no, he's not dead.
No, he's alive. Get yourself on the Wi-Fi. No password, obviously.
Yes.
So, I love the fact that you gotta love Taika Waititi. I'm going to direct the movie, and I'm going to write the movie. I'm also going to be in the movie, because I like to do mocap too. I like to wear a mocap suit for some reason, and be the funniest guy in the show practically.
Yes,
and it's I love the fact that Korg is coming back all the time. But I think you're right. I think there's going to have to be some kind of tie-in event where that happens. And it kind of reminded me a little bit of that creature that Drax fights in Guardians 2.
That's true.
At the beginning in the credit sequence, it kind of was similar. Yeah, it was kind of similar to that. But I guess in some ways it was kind of similar to Starro.
I mean, they could do their season and maybe 2 seasons and kind of follow up on some of these, and then do like an animated feature that is like, the multidimensional Avengers teaming up against whatever the tentacle thing is, against the Elder Gods, or whatever it is, that maybe it's something controlling it or something like that. But yeah, I kind of get the feeling that these aren't just throwaway stories, that they're gonna play into something else at some other point, or be referenced somewhere else at least. But yeah, I kind of hope that. I won't be disappointed if that doesn't happen, but I think that would be cool. And I think they know that too. It's like, hey, if this thing catches on, we should do this, right? And there's already going to be a second season, so.
Well, they're already going to do a second season, and basically the whole premise of the show, it explores alternate timelines of the multiverse. So it makes sense that these characters would show up, whether that ties into the main timeline of the MCU, the sacred timeline, if you will. Yes. We don't know, but maybe, and maybe it all comes together somehow. What if?
It's all connected.
It's all connected, exactly. So I love the fact that they're even doing this at all. And some people didn't like the animation. I didn't mind it at all.
I thought it was
I
thought
it was fine. Yeah, it definitely was. I'm trying to remember what. I know what kind of style it was, but it's kind of like, it's not perfect, but it doesn't have to be. It's not like hyper realistic or whatever. But it's just like it was good, and it didn't look cheap, and people were like complaining that it looked cheap. I don't think it did at all. I think they definitely put effort into this, and they definitely care about it. They're trying to do their best work, as it were. So it's not a throw. I guess what I'm saying is not a throwaway show. It's like, we just need an animated show to stick in there. So fuck it.
No, and I do agree. There's one criticism I agree with, oddly enough, but I think it was total missed opportunity. And maybe they'll do this if we revisit the character, but not calling Carter Captain Britain. But that's
well, no, she's not Captain Britain though, because that's Captain Britain, somebody else.
Steve was Captain America, but I guess this was still, they were still in America and blah blah blah. So, but
Well, why didn't they call her Captain America? I don't know.
Oh, that's
But
true.
yeah.
But that also though gives me hope that they actually have plans and want to do something with the actual character of Captain Britain, which would be awesome. So
Maybe. There's no. You have James Gunn who works in the MCU too, so you could just have James Gunn do a movie with featuring all the weird third tier Marvel characters too.
totally fine with that. That would
I
be
would
great.
fucking watch that movie in a heartbeat.
They could do an
So
anthology show where they're just like, James, here is all the characters that we don't think would ever work with a movie or TV show. Do what you want with them. I would totally let him do that because that would be awesome.
Yeah.
So, no, what if? I liked it. I thought it was really good. I'm looking forward to more. So, yeah.
I think it's just. I think the other thing too is that some people are probably going to criticize this for not. I don't know what's the word for not thinking big enough, maybe, because that's some of the criticism I've seen already from people who reviewed the entire show, the entire series. It's like the possibilities are apparently limitless, but they're thinking small, and I think they're trying to keep it grounded in the regular MCU. It's just they just can't, and they also can't solve a lot of problems.
Yeah.
In the Marvel universe that are going to be solved by other movies. So it's like, in some ways, that's why I was saying it's kind of like filler, but not really. But it's good filler. It's like stuffing in a turkey. It's really tasty,
Yeah. And
I'm enjoying it, and I just think it's fun.
I can see them getting, you don't want to go as extreme as possible, right out of the gate, right? You want to kind of build it and go, hey, here's our concept. Here's what we want to do with this. What do you think? And when people go, that's really great, then it's like, okay, we can open the gates and really go crazy. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to be. It doesn't seem like anything Marvel has done has been just throwaway. So I don't think it's going to be inconsequential. I think there'll be things in movies, or there'll be something down the road. It'll be like, wow, I'm really glad I watched all those What If shows because this is really cool to see this call out or to see this feature or whatever. So
yeah, I guess it's probably going to be something that's more. It might be more appealing to Marvel fans.
Yeah,
I'm not sure it's a show that would regular folks. I don't want to say that regular folks, but you know what I mean. This is a show for Marvel fans who want to watch more Marvel stuff. It's kind of like, oh, I want to see what happened. I get Marvel Zombies. I get all the cool comic stories that I saw before when I was younger and have read, but. Is it required viewing? I don't know. I kind of don't feel like any of these Marvel shows have been required viewing, except maybe Loki, because that seems to fit in.
I know people are like, "Oh, you got to watch all this stuff to understand it," and I'm like, "No, you don't," because
no, you don't.
That would be terrible storytelling if they did that. But I think it enhances and is really cool. And all of these things, thankfully, so far, including What If, have told really great stories. So.
Yeah, my bar for animation is pretty high is the other thing too. So some of it did seem kind of, it doesn't have to be fantastic, but it did seem sort of clunky at times. I grew up with Akira and Ghost in the Shell and stuff. So I'm like, animation is important. Also really dark, man.
Yeah, apparently.
A lot of people get blown up and shit. So that's the kind of stuff that Evangelion or something like that. It's like, I don't want to be depressed, so it's fine that I'm watching this kind of thing. But animation, like anime in particular, it's a high bar for me. So some of it did feel a little bit weird. Some of the lighting was weird. I kind of feel in some ways that I don't want to say that it was rushed, but maybe it was kind of rushed a bit.
Well, animation by its very nature is kind of, you have a finite time to do it in, right? And there are going to be parts where you're going to be like, well, maybe nobody will notice this, but we got to get this done.
Right. I like the action parts were cool, like the wonder shots of Peggy flying around and beating up the airplanes. I thought that was great. The fighting stuff was cool. It's just that some of the I don't know, it's silly to say this. Some of the dialogue scenes seem kind of clunky, and some of the humor was sort of. But you know what? It was done with earnestness, and so I kind of let it go. It didn't bother me. But I
think it's really difficult to animate any kind of dynamic style. People standing around talking.
True.
That's really hard. One of the things I wanted to point out real quick that I really liked about this story was, and I have seen this criticism back when the first Captain America movie came out, but I like the fact that it highlighted the love story between Peggy and Steve as not being dependent on him suddenly becoming this, hunk, right? A lot of people were like, oh, well, now she's really, she got really interested in Steve after he bulked up. It's like, what about the poor mousy guy? And I like the fact that they continued that. And it's like, oh yeah, so it didn't matter. They were going to be in love no matter what. And I thought that was really cool.
So. Yeah, it doesn't come across as well in the movie, really.
No,
I mean, they kind of have that one. They have that one scene in the car.
Yeah.
I always felt like it was more like Steve was totally into her because he had the compass with her picture. It's like he's like stalking her practically remotely. He's like, "Oh, you saw my picture of Peggy? That's weird."
Yeah.
But they had their relationship is based on like mutual respect, and she likes him for him. Yeah, he doesn't have to be some huge, because it's what's on the inside that matters, right?
Exactly.
So a good man, as Erskine would say.
But now I want to see Steve Rogers Iron Man stories, and I want to see, and maybe we'll get to see this, but I want to see. So now that she's in the present, how does that play into, the Avengers? And because
she's the first Avenger, right?
Right. So, but did Tony become Iron Man in this one if his dad had invented the Iron Man armor and maybe there was a series of Iron Men throughout the year, did Tony become a bad guy and continue down his dark path? Or
that's a good question, but there's definitely an episode where he and T'Challa meet. That's in the trailer,
so
right?
I want to see this.
Yeah, well, you only have to wait another week or less than a week now. So,
all right.
Yeah, I guess I'm whatever Stan Lee used to say, make mine Marvel, right? Yes. So I'm invested in Marvel, and I have been since I was a kid. So it's been a long time that I've been a Marvel fan. I don't even remember a time when I didn't read Marvel comics. It's been that long.
Right.
So I'm in, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Every time I hear that opening fanfare, I'm like, cool, another Marvel show. I love the fact that they did that, and then it went from sort of the animated thing, but went right into real like animation, like the show. So I don't know. You can make the case that this is canon, but it's just alternate reality, multiverse stuff.
Canon
which now
is whatever you want it to be.
Well, it is because it's a multiverse.
Yes.
Just like we always say with DC, it's a multiverse. It's so anything is possible now.
Yep.
So that's why she can, they can run into all these characters and they can have all these people doing things that are out of character. Like you're right, maybe Tony turns out to be a bad guy. He turns out to be a weapons monger. He turns out to be Ironmonger and the bad guy, right?
Right, exactly.
Like Jeff Bridges' character in the first. I mean, so who knows? And he, he's a bad guy, or he never gets the. He never has his experience in the cave, right?
That's what I'm saying. He never did that or had to make an armor, or maybe he was dealing in Dad's armor as a weapon, and like you said, became Ironmonger and stuff. So that's, I guess what I'm saying is this story did like what you would hope as a creator, is that it told a really good story and left me wanting more, right? So
it left you wondering, what if?
Yeah.
What if? Yeah. So anyway, I love that. I wanted to touch on some other animated things that we had talked about. Whatever. We don't have to do that. We could do that. We could save that for another episode. Maybe it makes more sense to not have a 2.5 hour episode today.
Yeah, maybe we could make this one a little short for the folks.
Well, not short, but just more brevity, because it's already, we tend to go on. But I think that animation deserves it. And I think because for one of the reasons you said is that animation gets a bum rap, I think, or is taken less seriously. So I would like to not deep dive, but I like to go into animated shows in a deeper way or in a more meaningful way, because there's a lot of anime, especially that I enjoyed as a kid. I mentioned a couple of them, like Akira and Ghost in the Shell and stuff, but there's a lot, and Miyazaki, of course. But it's just there's a lot of stuff that I watched that sort of informed my animation sensibilities, which I think is why I've never been even though I worked at Disney animation for a little bit, I've never been a huge fan of Disney animated movies, which I think is a terrible thing to say, or Pixar. Frankly, I'm not a huge Pixar movie fan either. So,
interesting. Yeah, maybe we do need to have a deeper discussion. I mean, my biggest thing about animation is I like it for the fact that you're no longer constrained by budget. You can do whatever you want.
Right.
And
and if these guys are smart, they took a lesson from Into the Spider-Verse.
Right. Exactly.
And they were like, and I'm sure they are. I say guys. I mean, these people, the creators of What If, is like, oh, this was an amazing. I mean, that was a great movie. Let's be honest.
Yes.
Story wise, but animation wise, it was beautiful to look at, and it was just, and the concept was well executed, and it was acted perfectly, and whatever. And I'm so happy they're going to make another one. But that is a prime example of modern animation. That's the kind of stuff that I like. I like that more than I would like,
Yes.
Toys number 6 or Cars number 4. So
no, I get that, and Into the Spider-Verse too. I think it was brilliant in that it didn't rely on just one animation style either. It incorporated a lot of stuff, even like stereotypical comic book looks in some of the scenes, and that was just inspired and brilliant. I can't wait to see the sequel, and so I hope that has like set the bar and is causing folks doing more recent animation to kind of think outside the box. I hate using that term, but push the boundaries of what they want to do and how they want to do it.
Think outside the box? Oh,
there is no box.
I don't even see a box, man.
That's right.
What if there was no box?
Not thinking, well, we're doing animation, so we have to adhere to these conventions, or it's got to look this way. I hope, and I kind of feel that way with What If a little bit, that they're like, no, we don't have to do it the way it's always been done. We can do something different. So anyway.
No, that's a weird thing to say, but yes, I agree with you. Yes, no. It's absolutely right. So, or is it wrong? I don't know. But I hope that What If leads to more animated. I mean, they do animated movies and stuff. I mean, DC does a lot of animated films, which quite a few of them I like. Batman. They've done quite a few Batman animated shows, which I really enjoyed too.
Yep.
I guess it's just. That's a style of animation that I prefer, and that's just my personal preference, which is why those like Batman the animated series and stuff is just like that's kind of more the style that I go for. Like with What If, the cell shading stuff, it's interesting. It's definitely a different kind of look, I think, but I think it works, and it's also. I guess there's a difference too between hand-drawn stuff, which I also think is cool, and computer animation. Maybe that's also the part where the disconnect for me is I prefer old school hand-drawn stuff.
That's fair. Yeah.
Although I thought Spider-Verse was amazing, and that's all computers. But so I don't know. I'm an enigma, Joe, is what I'm saying. But so that's the school of animation I come from. Anyway, I think animation is something we should talk about. Listen, we were talking about music at some point. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff, so we'll get to that. But I think it deserves more attention than just a passing mention.
Sure.
Because with What If we can get more into animation because it's a mainstream animated show. And we never really talked about Bad Batch that much. Which didn't appeal to me.
It didn't to me either because it just felt like, well, here's continuation of Clone Wars, which was okay. I just never got fully immersed into it, and my kids and some other people think it's the best Star Wars ever, and that's great, and they should. It was like, all of it doesn't have to appeal to everybody, right? And I was just like, no, this is. Right, yeah. I'm glad it exists, and I think it's great. I just,
I'm not I don't think I'm the target demographic for the Bad Batch.
No.
But other people are, and you make an excellent point, and we've said this many times. The collective whoever you are out there, is not going to like everything that I like, and I'm not going to like everything you like, and that's fine. Divergent opinions are fine.
Absolutely.
You like what you want and enjoy it, and I'll like what I want and enjoy it. But I'm not going to tell you you're wrong, right? So that's stupid. And your opinion is not valid. So.
And conversely, as a Star Wars or Marvel or Star Trek fan, you don't have to like all of it. That's totally fine because they're telling different stories to different audiences. If you like, you can like one episode of Star Trek and you are a Star Trek fan. You can like all of Star Wars and you're a Star Wars fan. It's not there's no like barometer to whether you're a fan or not. It's, do you like this? Yes, you're a fan. Right. And that's it, period. So
exactly. Yeah. Am I the person who waited for 10 years for Cap to finally say Avengers Assemble, and then I cried like a baby during Avengers Endgame? Yes.
Oh yeah, sure. I totally did. But
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I didn't cry like a baby, but I was like, I teared up. I was like emotional. I was like, he said, "Avengers Assemble." I was like, "Fuck yeah, finally!"
Yes, after being cut off.
Yeah.
But
But I was like, I was waiting for that. And then when he was able to wield Mjolnir, come on, man,
But
that's cool.
there were parts of that movie I'm sure that resonated with someone else in a similar way, or there were
Yeah,
other reasons why people like that, or there were people that were like, well, I don't really care for that, and that's okay. So,
we're talking about you, Martin Scorsese.
yes, yes,
You know what? I'm the first person to say that Marvel movies are not perfect. Obviously, they're not
no,
great cinema, whatever that means. They're not, they're popcorn movies with a little bit of heart in the right place.
sure,
But listen, at some point, I've gone to I don't know how many movies in my lifetime, thousands, tens of thousands
sure,
movies, maybe I don't
yep,
know, a lot. It's not all that often that I get that emotionally invested in a movie, and I'm so excited, and I'm so it doesn't happen as much as it used to. A, it's because I'm a cynical old person, and B, I know how the sausage is made.
yeah,
But C, it's like that spoke to me. That scene, that whole thing meant something to me. Plus, I'd been on a 10-year journey with these characters in the movies and whatever, and that meant something to me. The last Star Wars films kind of left me cold. It was great to see Han and Chewie again, and Luke and everybody,
yeah.
but they were treated with such disrespect. I'm like, the whole thing just it was a waste of time. So I think that's partially because that's partially one of the reasons why I'm like Bad
I didn't
Batch.
see that way, but that's okay.
I did. I'm burned out with Star Wars, as I've said before. They
Sure.
were kind of treated with disrespect, especially Luke, man. I think.
Oh, okay. We
And
can discuss that at some point.
anyway, yeah, I know you like Ryan Johnson, but I don't know. I don't think his Star Wars was very good, but that's
Okay.
another story.
All right.
So that's my problem with more modern, more recent Star Wars things, except for Mando, which I like a lot, and of course I'll watch, the return of Boba Fett in the
Sure.
World Crime League. You know what I wish we'd see is another freaking. No, never mind. Speaking of World Crime League, but
Oh yeah, another Buckaroo Banzai movie.
another Buckaroo
That'd be
Banzai,
great.
yeah, that'd be cool. You could still do it, man. Freaking what's his face is still alive, right? So
Yeah, Peter Weller's still around. So is Clancy Brown. Although I guess his
Goldblum
character
is still
died in
around.
it. But they could still. I would totally.
Clancy Brown is an awesome guy. He's still working. He's in the new John Wick movie. For
I
God's sake. Come
know
on.
that's going to be awesome. I would totally watch another Buckaroo Banzai with the original actors. Absolutely, any day. So
I think everybody's still Lithgow's still alive.
yep. So here's kind of my
yeah.
hot take, and
Go ahead.
for the
Hot take
for the
away.
episode is so while I understand actually I don't. I know the popular complaint is, well, all movies are remakes. All we get is remakes and tentpole movies, and same thing with TV shows and stuff. That's actually not true. There's like over 700 movies released every year. There's over, right now with streaming and everything, there's like 450 TV series and stuff like that. And that's not an exaggeration. And yeah, so a handful of those are remakes, are, big budget tentpole movies. But if you're not seeing the independent movies that you say you crave, then that's on you. That's not a movie studio going, hey, we're not releasing those, because they are being released. If you're not seeing them, and if
Yeah.
you're not talking about them and promoting them yourself, then that's on you. There's plenty of movies and TV shows out there for everybody. Not all of them are remakes. Not all of them are based on a comic book. Not all of them are based on books. Only a small fraction of them are. I think one of the things I've liked about COVID, and I hate saying that, but one of the things that is highlighted for COVID is when those big movies aren't coming out, it's like, oh, look, there's a ton of independent movies out there that previously would have flown over under everyone's radar. And it's like, so watch them, promote them, talk about them.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, people are still
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
oh, well, I'm still waiting around for the next James Bond movie. All right, so you're the problem. So stop complaining. Go see
We're all
these other
waiting for
movies.
that one, I think.
Sure.
But
Well,
yeah.
it's never going to come out, but
It's never gonna come out. Yeah, it's like a movie like Nobody. That wouldn't have
Yeah.
been as well known. Or the thing that I was going to talk about as far as indie films, real quick. You're talking about movies that are out of the mainstream, although it does feature a mainstream actor. But Pig with Nicolas Cage. Have
Right.
you watched that?
I
you watch
did, and it totally misrepresented the Portland restaurant scene.
Sure,
Whatever.
sure it does.
It does. It totally. I'm like, what? No.
Okay.
That's not Portland. Are you kidding
That's
me?
that's a story for a different time. But
Anyway.
but it's that kind of movie. It's like that. It's like an obscure kind of indie film that would never have gotten much
Yeah.
publicity. But I think Nicolas Cage is great in it. I think the movie's good. I enjoyed it. I mean, as much as you can enjoy something like that. But it's just,
But even if James Bond and everything else came out, that movie still would have been made and came out. And so it's like it's not. There isn't that. There's a lack of diversity in film and TV. It's that obviously the multi-million-dollar publicity machines aren't going to be behind Pig or anything like that. But it's also those things are there, and if they're not being spoon-fed to you or dropped in your lap, that's not the problem of the movie industry or TV industry. It's your lack of going and finding those. If you really want to see, like, I'm tired of Marvel movies, I want to see some good, really good indie, strong stories. They're there. Go find them. So that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, well, people like to say stuff to be hot take and controversial.
That's been the whole thing lately. It's like, oh, there's superhero fatigue, and all the movies are just remakes and stuff. It's like, that's not true.
And I can understand Scorsese's point too, is that he is as a consummate filmmaker. His world is, I make motion pictures that mean something. Although I make them for Netflix now because they're the only ones who will hire me because no one else can afford it. But it's just like, he's a filmmaker. That's what he does, and that's his sensibilities. And he doesn't like superhero movies.
He's still making those though, and it's like,
yeah, exactly. So he's earned the right to say something about superhero films.
Yes,
you don't have to agree with him, but you can't criticize him. The guy's a fucking genius.
Yeah.
So if he says superhero films are vacuous, waste of time, then that's his opinion. You don't have to agree with it, but you at least have to give it consideration because it's Martin Scorsese, for God's sake.
Yes.
So. The guy has forgotten more about filmmaking than most people ever know, and that's a cliche to say that, but it's true. So, I think the superhero films are not the same as Casino or Goodfellas. No, of course not. Absolutely, but those are different kinds of movies. I can watch Casino or Goodfellas or Mean Streets or Taxi Driver or whatever Scorsese film I want to watch, and I can also enjoy fucking Avengers Endgame. I could do both. I contain multitudes, Joe.
You're just you're never going to walk up to a theater and go, "Oh yeah, I want a ticket for that Scorsese movie," and they're going to go, "No, you got to go see the Marvel movie." That's never going to happen. Yeah. And the reason why they keep
am I going to walk up to a movie theater and get a ticket ever again?
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, but the reason why they keep making Marvel movies and stuff is because lots of people keep spending money to go see them. So it's like don't go see the Marvel movie and go, oh, that's another lame movie. I should, there should be an indie movie instead of that. Well, there is that indie movie, and the Marvel movie is still there because you keep going and seeing them. Stop going.
Right.
Go to the indie movie instead.
Yeah, I'm sure the complaint is you could have made 10 independent films for the cost of one Avengers Endgame. It's like, that's true, you could have. But that's not what the studios are in business to do.
That's not really how that works. But
well, it's not. The indie movies would have lost money probably, or one of them would have been moderately successful, but the studio would have gone out of business, so you would have got nothing. Well, so one of the reasons you get these giant movies is because the studios have to make money. I'm sorry to tell you this, but it's not art; it's business.
Well, and one of the reasons why you can get more indie movies and maybe ones that wouldn't have been made years ago is because we made a lot of money off this Marvel movie. Sure, we'll finance this movie. It's probably not going to. It may be break even. Yeah, we'll make. Right. Well, we will make 3 of those because we got the money. We're good. So.
Yeah, that's. I mean, A24 is like a company that's sort of like that. I mean, they have some controversial, I guess, things that they do or whatever, but they do release a lot of sort of indie kind of stuff, which I appreciate. One of the movies that I wanted to see that's finally coming out is Green Knight, which I wasn't able to
I really want
get
to
a
see
screener
that.
of, which apparently is a weird kind of indie kind of thing, which I'm down. I would totally watch that. And I like that Dev Patel. He's good.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to seeing that. I never got a screener, which is disappointing. So thanks a lot, A24. But I just think that here I was praising you, and now you're fucking me. No, okay. I'm an entitled former journalist.
Assholes.
Damn it, assholes! I'm gonna fucking slam your movie now.
Yeah, exactly.
No. I just have to wait like the rest of us. But and I didn't want to go to the theater as
sure,
as usual right now, especially. But I'm looking forward to seeing that, and I will watch that as soon as I can. And there's a lot of indie movies, but I also watch, like we both do. I try to watch everything, and
yes.
Because someone said something to me which makes perfect sense. You should try to watch everything, because then how do you know what's good and what's bad, or what you like and what you don't like? You have to have lots and lots of data points to make your decisions. Like I used to read every book I possibly could. Sure, I kind of gravitated towards sci-fi and fantasy and whatever, but I still tried to read everything. Now I try to watch everything.
But my point is, if all your money is going to the movies you say you hate and you can't understand why they keep making them, well,
right?
That's why they keep making them, because all your money's going to that. So why don't you instead skip the Marvel movie and go see 2 or 3 independent movies and rave about those if they're good? I just it's like it's out there. The things that people want are out there. It's just that it isn't right in their face and, like I said, dropped in their lap. So they're like, oh, they're not making those. Well, yeah, they are. I can tell you the 700 movies that were released last year were not all Marvel movies, because there was no Marvel movies released last year. So, you know, why were you not supporting those and watching those instead? Because all of those obviously went to streaming as well, because that was the only venue. So where was your voice and rave about those then? That was a good opportunity right there to really promote the independent film. And I'm not talking about you in particular, but you know, it's like,
no, you're talking. I feel attacked.
Do you? I feel seen.
No, I feel seen. Yeah.
But those movies are there and those TV shows are there. It's just you. Yeah. So anyway,
so go out and find them and support indie film too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You might actually enjoy something. Like I would watch Pig, or watch some weird thing that you don't really think you're going to like. Just give it a try. You know, you can always turn it off, but you never know what you're going to find. Out there, because there's a lot of things, as Joe said. If you're on Netflix or on what Netflix has got all kinds of weird sections of stuff. I'm not advocating going out into the theater. I mean, necessarily, but you can definitely see stuff on streaming. And apparently, we're going to be having more opportunities to watch stuff on streaming again.
Apparently,
so
we are. Yes.
Yay!
Except for No Time to Die, which is never going to come out. So.
Right, or Free Guy, only in theaters. So I'm
right now.
Right now, I want to say that. In fact, I will say it. I do enjoy Mr. Ryan Reynolds, and I hope his movie makes lots of money. But I hope no one gets sick because they went to see it.
Absolutely.
So. Well, except you unvaccinated people. Fuck you.
Yeah, you guys can go die in a fire anyway.
Eat all the dicks on the beach.
Who puts that? Oh, who knows why madmen do what they do?
Why would put penises on the? Yeah, I love her, man. She's
that whole that line, that scene right there encapsulates what I love about James Gunn. I'm just going to say this for a second. Just the pivot of the conversation as it goes through was just perfectly written and perfectly acted. It was great.
I just wonder how much of that was written. I imagine a lot of it. I feel like that just came from his brain. And
exactly. Yeah.
It's just, it's funny. It's funny.
And it just has this weird pivot that goes, it's like, wait, how did we get over here all of a sudden? And it was just, that's why I love his filmmaking. And
if I'm the leader, I'm going to tell you to eat all the dicks on the beach. It's like, wow, I would. If this beach was covered in dicks, I would all the dicks for freedom.
Well, who puts dicks all over the beach? Who knows why madmen do what they do? It's like, what?
Yeah, fucking Cena with the joke, man.
Yeah,
I saw him. What was I watching the other day? Anyway, but we're gonna end the show in a second. But I was watching him on Graham Norton. Have you ever watched Graham Norton? You have.
I have. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was on. There's like a whole, because I have all the clips from all the Suicide Squad cast members' appearances on Graham Norton.
Sure.
And there's like one where he's on. He is funny, man. I don't know why are you so bad in F9?
Well,
I'm just wondering. It's like Vin Diesel said, "Don't be funnier than I am."
No, I just think it was a bad director. I mean,
well, bad script too, probably.
Yeah,
but he's funny, and I'm glad that Peacemaker is going to get another.
Yeah, me too. And he seems to be a decent guy too. He's done a lot of campaigning for equality and stuff in the past that I think is really great.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I wonder if people will get just how we'll get Peacemaker. We'll understand that character. What I think James Gunn is trying to say about the world in general and some of the people in it by watching. It's not subtle, but it's kind of.
I think some people will like it and dig it for the wrong reasons. For their own
I think
narrative,
you're right.
And not understand what is actually going on there, because it was subtle but really well done in the movie.
But not that subtle.
No, and so I'm interested to see how that plays out and what they do with the character in the show. But yeah, I think there's definitely people be like, yeah, he's shooting people. This is great. I'm going to watch this. And it's like, no.
I will murder. I don't care how many men, women, and children I have to kill to get it. I love peace. I love peace. I don't care how many people I have to kill.
I do want a King Shark series, but that's another story for another time. So
yeah, you know what's we gotta go in a second, but it's just like watching people like talk about something like, oh, Sylvester Stallone movies are making so much money. I'm like, yeah, it wasn't really a Sylvester Stallone movie. He plays a fucking CG shark. No offense to Mr. Stallone, he does a great job as King Shark as the voice, but it's like he's not doing the motion capture. He's not doing anything. He's not playing anything. He's just you know.
Yeah, it's like so if Sylvester
Guardians of the Galaxy
scores again. It's like not really, but okay.
All of his movies are hits. It's like, yeah, okay, good for him. But it's like, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy is a hit because of fucking Vin Diesel saying, "I am Groot."
I mean, if you hadn't seen many Sylvester Stallone movies before that, you probably wouldn't even have known that was his voice. I mean,
where have you been if you didn't know that's Sylvester Stallone?
Right. So it's just like, okay.
We talked about Dredd last week. I would love to see a sort of multiverse edition of Dredd where Judge Dredd as Stallone's Judge Dredd and Carl Urban's Dredd get together.
That would be cool.
I would totally watch that movie. But anyway, I'm weird, so
I would watch it too.
I would watch it. But so if you're listening, movie gods, make it happen.
Yes.
What if?
Hey, Sly, if you're listening to us, make it happen, man.
Yeah. What if they got together? I'm just saying.
What if? Yes.
What if? So, all right, cool. Anything else? Any other parting hot shots?
No, I think
hot takes.
Once again, I've said enough for this episode.
Once again, you've said enough. Cool. All right. So for Joe Dilworth, I'm Chris Ulrich. That was the Flickcast. Thanks so much for listening.